Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone and hello to our lecturer. Today I'm very excited to present a comprehensive literature review based on my annotated bibliography of 10 research studies that I write before. So my presentation is titled um, Songs and Digital Integrating Songs and Digital Media in EFL Pronunciation Instruction. Over the next 10 minutes, we will look at how music impacts pronunciation, the various methodologies researchers used, the key statistical result, and what this means for us as the future English educators. Let's begin with the first study. Okay, moving on to slide 2, the first study by Wahyuni and colleagues in 2024 investigated the use of the YouTube Music app at SMP Negeri SMP Negeri 56 Palembang using a classroom action research or CAR design across 3 cycles. They target their, their they targeted 31 8th grade students. The results were outstanding. Is the student minimum competency pass rate rose dramatically from 48% in cycle 1 to 70% in cycle 2 and peaked at 83% in cycle 3. However, they also note through questionnaires that the primary barriers to pronunciation are limited exposure and low motivation. So, the authors conclude that drilling trending social media songs via YouTube Music successfully bridges this motivation gap. And then the next slide presents a study by Simanjuntak et.al. in 2025. Unlike the previous action research, this study used a quantitative quasi-experimental design with an experimental and a control group. Their t-test results showed statistically significant improvement in the experimental group's phonological development. What's interesting here is that the improvement occurred in both segmental features like vowels and consonants and suprasegmental features which include intonation and rhythm. So, the authors conclude that English pop songs should be used as a core pedagogical tool, not just a time filler or supplement. And then on the next slide, we shift to a descriptive qualitative approach by Trisnawi and Huda 2025, focusing on the English Club at SMK Negeri 1 Bandung. Through Google Forms and interviews, they examined student attitudes. The result showed that 8 out of 10 students held highly positive perceptions. They reported that songs lowered their anxiety and helped them memorize correct word stress. Therefore, the conclusion is that music reduces the affective filter, making students more confident and receptive to natural language flow. And then the next article looks at vocational students, specifically 1610 graders in Cimahi, studied by Anggraini and Buana, 2022. They use a qualitative method utilizing a 5-point Likert scale questionnaire. Their data analysis yield a high interpretation value of 80%, categorizing student response into strongly agreed. Students agreed that songs create a relaxed classroom atmosphere. The conclusion mirrors our previous slide. Creative song media is highly effective in removing the physiological trait often associated with practicing English pronunciation. And the next slide. So now, let's look at international context on slide 60. So Saldirner and Chinkara, 2021, conducted an 8-week quasi-experimental study in Turkey with 72 young learners, comparing a song group against a plain text group. To keep it objective, audio recordings were read by native speakers. The UNCOVA test result proved that the song group achieved significantly higher pronunciation scores than the text group. So the conclusion is vital. Songs are scientifically proven to be a robust, objective learning medium that structurally outperforms traditional text-based method for young EFL learners. And in the slide 7, introduce a creative combination by Palupi 2022, who paired English songs with total physical response or TPR for elementary students in Klaten. They use a mixed method CAR approach, and the result showed that average scores for vowels and diphthongs progressed steadily from fair to good, and finally reached good to excellent in cycle 2. Student confidence peaked when physical movement was combined with music. And the conclusion is that matching melodic input with physical action transforms passive listening into an active kinesthetic learning experience perfectly suited for kids. And we move to the seventh article. Harunisa and Sabila 2020 conducted CAR also study with 25 8th graders at Ascendant Muhammadiyah 7 Medan. Sorry. Look at the quantitative result. The class average grew from 69.83 in the pre-test to 69.9 in cycle 1 and 82.7 in cycle 4. In cycle 2. More importantly, the percentage of students passing the target score jumped from just 24% to 88%, sorry. And the conclusion here highlights that systematic music integration provides consistent, measurable academic growth while reducing classroom anxiety. And the 8th article, Michael Misa studied 25 junior high students in UIN using a mixed method CAR design. The results showed the class average climbed from 53.6 to 71.6, with 84% of students achieving the minimum passing grade. Through data triangulation, this study proved that repetitive, enjoyable interaction with songs accelerates students' familiarity with English songs patterns. And the conclusion is that repetition through music feels less boring and more like entertainment, leading to organic retention. And the two last article, please pay close attention to this slide because the study by Pamela and Latolong, provides a critical reality check. They use a quantitative correlation design with 69 junior high students to see if a student's habit of listening to music in their free time correlates with their actual pronunciation test scores. And the result revealed p-value of 0.072, which is higher than 0.05, and a very weak correlation coefficient of 0.308. This means there is no statistically significant correlation between passive listening habits at home and explicit pronunciation skill. And the conclusion is groundbreaking for us. Good pronunciation is not an automatic byproduct of casual listening. As teachers, we must provide structured, active classroom intervention. And then the final article by Darius reminds us that songs aren't just for kids. They applied CAR at the public senior high school in Batanghari for third grade adolescents. The result showed a total increase of 14.61 points in average test score. uh, alongside marked improvements in lesson enthusiasm and peer interaction. Um, the conclusion is that music-based strategies remain highly effective for older teenagers, provided the songs are age-appropriate and encourage active engagement. Mm, this whole article brings me to my personal conclusion and synthesis on the last slide ini. Synthesizing all 10 articles lead to three major takeaways. First, active interrogation versus passive habit. Non-studies prove songs work inside the classroom, but Article 9 proves that passive listening outside the classroom is not enough. Music must be treated as a structured lesson, not a background distraction. Second, songs are perfect for learning the effective filter, breaking down student anxiety across all ages. Third, they develop both segmental and suprasegmental features simultaneously. As an English language education student, my stance for my future teaching practice is clear. I will not just play music to entertain my students, but I will integrate songs systematically, combining them with explicit phonological drilling, digital tools like YouTube Music, and interactive tasks to ensure music serves as an intentional pedagogical bridge. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'm now open to any question or feedback, maybe at the comment or personally to me when we meet. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.